Thank you to everybody who showed up tonight. It's lovely to have you here. I'd like to start with a prayer. That's okay with you? And if it's not okay, I'm going to start with a prayer anyway. So let's just turn within and get still. Just taking a moment now to turn aside from our entire history with regard to God, religion, church, synagogue, mosque, and sex. All of the associations we've made or haven't made between these two concepts. And we're just turning our attention now to the inner realm of spirit, to the realm that is all knowledge, all wisdom, all intelligence, all love. It is the power, the presence of the one that we call God, or spirit, or life, or universal consciousness, or divine mind. And I am that, and so too is everybody here this evening. We are all joined in consciousness, and we are here to go deeper in our awareness around divinity and sexuality. And so I'm declaring for this evening's presentation that everything unfolds in an atmosphere of joy, an atmosphere of learning, and an atmosphere of deep introspection and transformation. I'm knowing that everyone who is here is meant to be here. This is the perfect configuration in order to bring forth whatever needs to bring forth as part of the evolutionary journey of humanity. So I bless it all, I name it good. I know that the slideshow works perfectly, that the technology is perfect, that the lighting's perfect, everything is perfectly set up for this presentation. And I give thanks for the divine outcome. I give thanks for the knowledge, for the learning, for the fun, for the laughter, for the joy, and for the understanding, for the transformation. I release this word into law and I allow it to be. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. All right, do you like my opening slide? I love my opening slide. Courtesy of a woman called Nina Paley, who does these beautiful, beautiful movies and these gifts of the goddess figurines. So just love her. So the first thing is a song. Can you play the song for us, Ray?
That's the second slide.
Did Jesus have a baby sister? I wonder if you've ever wondered this yourself. This is Dory Previn, Andre Previn's wife, first wife before Mia Farrow.
Did Jesus have a baby sister? Was she bitter? Was she sweet? Did she wind up in a convent? Did she end up on the street, on the run, on the stage? Did she dance? Did he have a sister? Little baby sister, did Jesus have a sister? Did they give her a chance? Did he have a baby sister? Could she speak out by and large? Was she told by Mother Mary, ask your brother, he's in charge, he's the chief, he's the whipped cream on the cake. Did he have a sister? Little baby sister, did Jesus have a sister? Did they give her a break? Her brother's birth announcement, it was pretty big, I guess. Well, she got precious little notice in the local press. Her mother was the virgin when she carried him therein. If the little girl came later, then was she conceived in sin and in sorrow and in suffering and in shame? What was her name? Did she long to be the savior, saving everyone she met? And in private to her mirror did she whisper, save your ass, save your woman, save your person, save your breath. Did he have a sister, little baby sister? Did Jesus have a sister? Was she there at his death? And did she cry for Mary's comfort as she watched him on the cross? And was Mary too despairing? Ask your brother. He's the boss. He's the chief. He's the man. He's the show. Sister, little baby sister, did Jesus have a sister? Doesn't anyone know? Doesn't anyone know? Did Jesus have a sister?
Great song, huh? Great song. It actually, for the first time when I heard it tonight, it started to move me to tears. Oh, thank you. I got moved to tears thinking, yeah, if he did have a sister, she's completely invisible. Does anybody know her name? No, of course not.
He had at least two.
Yeah, he did have kids. Yeah. I'm going to address that later in the presentation, yeah.
His wife was called a prostitute.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that too, Kathy. Yeah, so let's move on. Hang on. Oh, I wanted to go. That's what I wanted, yeah.
Perfect.
So these are my intentions tonight, to expose some myths about women and sex that have done harm to us all, to set you free to enjoy sexual pleasure without guilt or shame or fear, and to show you a good time while covering a few thousand years of history and her story. Is it this way? Yeah. So my intent is to educate and entertain. Let's just go over the little cartoon there. Baby, we've been dating for a while and I think I want to have sex. Well, I want to, it's just God is watching us. And then God behind the bushes said, no, I'm not. Isn't that cute? Anyway. So I want to educate and entertain. I have no intent to offend, trigger, disempower anyone here with regard to your own spiritual or religious beliefs. And I may be irreverent. So just so you know, I may be irreverent. So what's your intention for this presentation? And here are some examples. I want to switch off my phone. Hopefully you've done that already. Discover some of my old beliefs and outworn concepts about God and sex. Start to heal body hatred. Uncover the roots of sexual shame. Liberate myself from the association of sex with sin. So have a little think about that. And we're a really small group. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to just pair up with somebody and just share one intention with that person. So I've got two there, I've got two there. Yep. Corey, do you want to?
I'll go over there.
Charge subject.
Just one intention. Swap partners if you haven't already. I mean, swap sharing. So we can get moving. $60 to wrap up. Okay, I'm going to ask you to stop now so we can move on. I hope you had a chance to share at least one intention with your partner. So I'm going to move to the next slide. Thank you very much. So Nikki gave me a lovely invitation, welcome in the beginning. Thanks. So just a quick intro. When I wrote that bio for Nikki, I had not yet published my fourth book. So it's there on the top right-hand corner. It's called Miracle Making: How to Pray the Affirmative Way in 5 Easy Steps. I'm really proud of that. So those are my other books there on the right. And on the left, on the top, you can see me. I'm talking at the LGBTQ conference in Johannesburg. It was 2019. And I shared with approximately 1,500 people how I released my virginity. I don't say lost, because if I had lost it, nothing's lost in the universe, so I would have found it again by now. So I definitely released it. And you can see this one here is where I started the first New Thought ministry in South Africa. And above that, I'm standing there with Reverend Michael when he came to South Africa to speak. So I've had a very colorful past. So let's look at what is mythology. So the term mythology refers to a body of traditional stories, narratives, legends, and beliefs that typically originate from ancient cultures and civilizations. Mythology encompasses a collection of myths or symbolic narratives that serve to explain and interpret aspects of the natural world, human behavior, societal norms, the divine realm. So the talk is busting the mythology, or breaking the mythology. What did I say? No, debunking the mythology of God and sex. So you can see that the mythologies approach all of those areas: natural world, human behavior, societal norms, the divine realm. So that's our subject tonight. So on the subject of God and sex, we're still living with mythologies that have been in existence for over 2,000 years. So I figure it might be time for an update. That's what I'm doing tonight. Have you ever wondered, why is God a man? Why are women seen as wicked temptresses? Why is sex considered sinful or dirty? What about that reproductive anomaly with the rib? And was Mary, mother of Jesus, really a virgin? And was Mary Magdalene really a prostitute? Have you ever wondered those things? Yeah. Maybe some of you have already done your own research into that as well. So these questions prompted me to write my book, The Sex Goddess: Debunking the Mythology of God and Sex. Especially that top one. Why is God a man? How did God get assigned that male pronoun? It's irritated me forever. So these are some of the major myths that I've been debunking in my book, The Sex Goddess. So Eve was not born from Adam. Adam and Eve were not the original sinners. Eve's sin is not the cause of human mortality. Mary, mother of Jesus, was not a virgin. Mary Magdalene was not a hooker. And not all ministers are asexual. Yeah. Present company accepted. Okay, let's move on. So when you were a young child, just think about what were you taught about God? About God's gender, location? Was God up in the sky, in heaven somewhere, distant, close or distant, loving or angry, or both? And who were your teachers for this concept of God that you learned? Was it your parents? Was it Sunday school? Were you in shul? Did you believe and accept that concept of God, or did you question it and rebel? Maybe in the beginning you believed it, but maybe later you rebelled. I know at my church in South Africa, I had a number of renegade Catholics who had left the Catholic belief when they discovered that it didn't work for them anymore. And what have been or might be the painful consequences of questioning your childhood concept of God? I remember I read a book called A God Who Looks Like Me by Patricia Lynn Riley. Anyone come across that book? Okay, she asked us in the book to do certain exercises, and one of them was to draw a picture of a mother god, a God who looks like me. In other words, a God in a feminine form. I was terrified to draw that picture, even terrified to draw the picture. And we were asked to start to relate to a feminine being of God rather than a masculine. And I was terrified of doing that too, because what if I made a mistake? What if I was off base and there really was no feminine God? What if this was seen by the male punishing God in the sky as heresy? And what if I got excommunicated as a result of worshipping a feminine god, a goddess. So eventually I did do the exercise. I broke through the fear, but it was an interesting process for me to see how much fear I was in of challenging the male concept of God. Let's move on.
Just have to point it at the computer. Point it back here.
I pointed it to you. Okay, sorry. Thanks. And some more questions to ponder. How old were you when you learned about sex? How did you learn and from whom? Was sex seen as sinful if premarital or extramarital? I mean, if you have sex inside a marriage, that's okay, right? Were you expected to be a virgin when you got married? I was. Anyone else yet? No? Okay.
I was by accident.
Oh, you were by accident. That's very honest. Thank you very much. Not for want of trying. Were you taught about self-pleasuring? What would happen to you if you masturbated? Would you grow hair on your palms? Go blind? Would your hand drop off? Those are some of the myths that were perpetrated in the Catholic Church. Excuse me. And what were or might be the consequences of questioning your conditioned beliefs about sex? Also a scary thing to do. This way. Oh, there we go. So who do you think really birthed the universe into existence? Before the beginning, before the Genesis story, we had Divine Mother. And the ancient believes that it must be a woman who birthed the universe into existence, because they could see that women gave birth to babies. And they figured that Divine Mother, or the female being that gave birth to the planet, must be just like a woman. And instead of giving birth to a baby, she gave birth to a planet. They didn't understand about the male seed fertilizing the female ovum, and they just thought that somehow the blood coagulated, or the parts of the planet coagulated in Divine Mother's womb and then pushed out as a fully formed planet. They believed that the blood was magic, that a woman's menstrual blood was absolutely magic, because they could see that a woman could bleed and not die. And they thought that was magic, because from a man in warfare, if he bled, he would possibly bleed to death. But every month on a regular basis, women would bleed and not die. That was magical for them. And also, they stopped bleeding at a certain period in their life, so when they were going through menopause. And the men believed that the women turned the blood on and off, so that they didn't understand that it was a natural process. They just thought women were magical beings. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. So these are some of the ancient goddesses. Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar of Babylon. So you can see Ishtar's got like crow's feet and she's got wings. So the ancients also believed that the gods took the form of birds, or could take the form of birds, because birds can fly everywhere. They can fly very high. They can fly beyond our sight. They can fly into the heavens. And then the other one is a terracotta relief of Ishtar from Eshnunna. So Ishtar and Inanna, they're interchangeable. So in some areas you hear Inanna, in some you hear Ishtar. So basically it's one mother goddess. She has different names depending on the region where the people worship her. And next one is, these are some pictures of, oh, what happened here? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Has anyone heard of the descent of Inanna? No. So this is the Sumerian goddess Inanna. She had a dark sister, and there's a whole mythology about her going to visit her dark sister in the underworld, and really it's a psychological process of engaging with our dark side. And the next one is
The right button.
I am. That is the right button.
Okay. Is your screen is up there? What happened? Your screen on the bottom. Yeah. Oh, that's why. Okay. There you go.
Thank you. So Isis, has anyone been to Egypt, by the way? I've only been 16 times so far. You want to go next year with the CSL trip? Yeah, me too. So Isis is probably the most famous mother goddess. And you see the picture in the middle is a picture of Isis having sex with her husband Osiris. So Isis was the mother goddess of Egypt. Osiris was the father god of Egypt. These are the two most important god and goddess in the Egyptian pantheon. So Osiris was killed by his wicked brother Seth. And Isis flew all over the Nile Delta looking for him, found him, put him back together, and managed to make his penis hard and have sex with him and conceive the son Horus. And after that, Osiris stayed dead, and he became the king of the ruler of the underworld. And you can see on the right-hand side the statue of Isis holding the baby Horus on her lap. Does that remind you of anything? Mary and Jesus, exactly, yeah. So this was the forerunner for Mary and Jesus. Let's see. Okay, and here's the original Trinity. So I saw this when I was in Egypt for the first time. I saw statues of Isis, Osiris, and Horus. Mother, father, child. And it occurred to me, oh, that's the real Trinity. Of course it is. So when the Christians came along, they had to get rid of the feminine element. So they changed mother to the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, because they couldn't possibly allow for a feminine essence to be part of this Trinity that was obviously going to be male-based. So this, not only is it the Holy Trinity, but for those of you who study science of mind, it's the creative process. It's the process of creation. So it starts with a male seed or a thought seed, goes into the womb where the egg is waiting to be fertilized, and that's the universal law that goes to work on our thinking, and then we produce something in form. So it's the creative process that's embodied by these three figures. So it seems to me a much more natural Trinity than the other one that the Christians made up. Oh, I went a bit. So this is the temple of Isis in Mainz in Germany. In the goddess religions, they celebrated sexuality, they celebrated life, they celebrated fertility. As you can see on the left, there's a statue of two lovers. So this is a statue in the temple of Isis. On the right, you can see a pygmy with a rather large erection, also a statue in the temple of Isis. So sex was something that wasn't sinful or shameful, it was celebrated. Because sex was the beginning of new life, and that was something to celebrate. It's like planting seeds in the ground. We wanted a fertile crop, we wanted fertility, we wanted crops, we wanted a good harvest. So that was something that they prized. And here's the goddesses of love, beauty, and sensuality. So Aphrodite, and her Roman counterpart was Venus. So I think that picture is called The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli, very famous picture. And so Aphrodite had a festival once a year. It was called the Aphrodisia, where people danced and sang and drank and ate and made love, and that's where we get the word aphrodisiac from. Oh, there we go. And so in the goddess religions, there was a temple for every community, and there was the high priestess who was the head of the temple, and then the priestesses that served there had many different functions. Some of them would brew beer, some of them would play music, some of them would be out in the fields and working with sowing the seeds in the land, managing the cattle. But one of the designations of the priestesses was sex priestess. So the sex priestess worked in the temple or in the temple grounds, and men would come to the sex priestess in order to raise their spiritual vibration, to raise their vibratory frequency, because the men understood that the women had a more easy, natural contact with the larger universe or the other side or the invisible realm. And so they would come to have sex with her in order to go deeper spiritually. Go deeper is a good pun. But they went in order to raise their spiritual vibration. And when the men had been to war, their wives would actually send them to the temple to have sex with the sex priestess. And she would love the war out of the man. Isn't that nice? So, yeah. So she would help him to regain his balance, regain his sense of being centered and anchored in his masculine self. And here are some priestesses with snakes. So these are, the left one is a Minoan snake priestess. The middle one is Pythia, the oracle of Delphi. So there was a dead snake under the ground. Can you see the crack in the earth and the fumes coming up? So it was believed that the snake's fumes from the snake would come up and would send her into a trance where she could give prophecy. And then the last one, you see Queen Cleopatra of Egypt. So we don't know if she killed herself with a snake. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. We don't know that. But the snakes were the familiars of the priestesses. The priestesses in the goddess religions, they honored the snake. They saw the snake as the repository of wisdom because they believed the snake had eternal life. They could see that the snake would shed its skin and not die. So they would, because they believed snakes were wisdom incarnate, they would listen to the snakes. They would consult the snakes. Most goddess temples had a snake pit where they kept the snakes. I've also read that the priestesses knew how to inject just enough venom into their skin, into their system, to go into a trance-like state. So too much venom, they would have killed themselves, but they knew how to get exactly the right amount so that they could have visionary or hallucinatory experiences. And anything occurring to you about a story in the Garden of Eden? Yeah, possibly Eve was a priestess, possibly a sex priestess, possibly listening to the snake because she trusted the snake. Why wouldn't she? She's used to, in the temples, used to listening to the wisdom of the snake. Interesting how that got perverted, huh? Yeah. Can you?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We're done. We're good.
Let me have that.
All right.
I'll check the batteries.
Thank you. Oh, that might be, yeah. So Mrs. God. Has anyone ever heard of Mrs. God? I love it, that thanks to archaeology and thanks to all the research that's been done since the Bible was written, things have been emerging that the people in the time who wrote the Bible could never have known about. So this is from a piece of pottery found at, I don't know, Kuntilet Arjut in the northern Sinai desert in 1976. And it says, on the pottery, they're asking for a blessing from Yahweh and his Asherah. Isn't that lovely? So it's when the goddess religions were, I don't want to say in charge, because it makes it sound like the matriarchy is the opposite of the patriarchy, and I don't mean that. When the goddess religions prevailed, let's put it that way, the priestesses could take any man to their bed, and that was fine. They could choose who they had sex with. And in the heavens, it was understood that the mother goddess would always have a consort, would always have a lover. So it was no big deal for the divine beings to be paired up sexually. It wasn't like God's out there, like right now, God's out there on his own, right? He's just a male guy with no sexual interest at all. But at that point, it was natural for God, Yahweh, to have a female companion. And in this case, Asherah.
Next slide.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to miss the next slide, but I'm going to go forward. Yeah, maybe I'll play that later. I've got a song about Mrs. God, but I'll play it for you later. Yeah, okay. So as I said, in the goddess religions and the pagan religions, they celebrated life. It was about fertility, sexuality, sensual pleasure, joy and fun, the stewardship of the earth, the plants and the cattle, harmonious relationship with the elements, and the cycle of life, including death. So they understood that when you're born, you come from the womb of the mother. When you die, you go back into the earth, which is the womb of the great mother. There was a natural understanding of the cycle. No fear of death, no resistance to dying or death. You see how, as I'm speaking here, I'm hoping that you're seeing how much that got all reversed in Christianity, where death became something that was the result of
patriarchal religions, really, not just Christianity.
Yeah, not Christianity. Yeah, you're more familiar with the other religions than I am, maybe. Yeah. All right. So this life, this period of time when the goddess religions prevailed really ended about 5,000 years ago, so 3000 BCE. And that's when there was an invasion from the area of Russia close to Georgia. And the invaders came on horseback, and they had sky gods. They had gods of thunder and lightning and volcanoes. And they occupied the areas of Europe and the Middle East, or the ancient Near East, where the goddess religions were. And they gradually infiltrated. So it wasn't an instant takeover. So at first, the goddess was kind of demoted to becoming the consort of the god. And then afterwards, the goddess disappeared completely, not even as a consort, and then the male god was left alone in the heavens. And as that happened in the spiritual or religious beliefs about God, it was happening on the earth plane as well. So as the male took over in the heavens, so too the male took over in society, and women lost more and more of their power. You can see the angry, warlike imagery of the male god energy as it took over in these areas where the goddess religions had prevailed.
What's the reddish pink area?
That's the area where these invading horsemen came from. It's around, interestingly, around Ukraine. Yeah, Russia, yeah. So Divine Mother was replaced by Divine Father. The women no longer had control of the land, because the women who were working in the temple, the priestesses, the high priestess and the local priestesses, they were the political and religious rulers of the local communities. So they lost their land, and it was believed that the children of the mother should inherit the land, because you know for sure who the mother is, you know for sure who the parent is. Whereas now, after the patriarchy begins to take over, the women aren't allowed to pass on their property or their wealth, what they had left, to their children. Then it became the man's job to decide who was going to inherit. And this is why men had to insist that women were virgins when they married them, because God forbid someone else would inherit their land, a kid would inherit their land that was the child of another man. So that's why we have to insist that women are virgins when they get married, so we know they're pure, and that way we can count on it that the kids that are born of that union will be the ones who should truly inherit the father's property. That's why women have to be virgins today. This is a really old custom based on the male need to know who's going to inherit his property. Yeah.
Which is so true, I think, with the accumulation of wealth and the controlling of that, which built in the scarcity that we're still into today because of that. And I think untangling that will also help untangle what we're untangling here with our sexuality and expression.
Yeah, it's all related. Thank you for saying that. Yep. Okay, let's move on. Oh, right, it's not moving again.
Just sure you're doing the right one.
Yep.
On the very top.
Oh, okay.
On the very top.
I have to, the top of the button. Okay. Thank you. I got it. All right. So when the sky god began to rule the heavens, that's when this imagery started to come into our conceptual framework of reality. So we've got Old Father time, Merlin the magician, Odin the Norse god, Old Father Christmas, Sinterklaas in Holland, and Santa Claus in the USA. Can you see the resemblance? That patriarchal old man figure. So prevalent in our culture, and it's not just in the religious world. Here we go, I got it. Yeah. It's a sensitive thing. Yeah, okay. So these invaders, I said they came in about 5,000 years ago. So that was 3000 BCE, and that's also the time when, interestingly, when writing was invented or discovered. And so you can see the Fertile Crescent, that green area on the map. So on the left side would be Egypt, and that's where hieroglyphs were developed. And on the right side would be Sumer, where cuneiform was developed. And interestingly, there was also a shift in the political power or social power when writing came into being, because this writing was the expression of a linear masculine mind. And so, whereas before writing, the goddesses or the priestesses were in charge, and they were feminine beings and mostly tapped into their right brain. So it wasn't such a left brain culture. So as the left brain culture came in, it became, things were written down, then laws were written down, and local city-states were formed. So there's a structure and there was a hierarchy. So gradually the left brain took over as the males took over. And we're still dealing with as you mentioned, sir, still dealing with that today, the fallout from having a left brain dominant approach to life. So when the invaders infiltrated, they took over in the temples. And so they took over the priestess's robes, so that would give them the spiritual authority to speak to the people in the sacred spaces. And they used their sacred symbols. You can see on the right at the bottom there's a chalice, which is a sacred symbol for a feminine priestess. It's a symbol of the womb. And you can see the beautiful brocade. Have you ever wondered why men in the Orthodox Church and they wear these beautiful brocaded gowns? Well, it's a hangover from taking over from the priestesses' gowns. In the priestesses' hymns, they replaced the word she with he. In the prayers, they replaced every time there was the female pronoun, they replaced it with the male pronoun. And the women were no longer allowed to serve in the temple or worship in the temple. They weren't allowed to run their rituals. And if they had done that, they would have been persecuted, put to death. So what did they do? They escaped to the forest. And that's where they had their rituals and said their prayers and sang their hymns and engaged in their conversation. Does that remind you of anything?
Yeah, and it led to then going and finding them and burning them.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the beginning of the association of women with witchcraft, darkness, black magic, evil, sin. It's all in the mind of the patriarchy. It's against the patriarchy. No, they were just trying to save their own lives and still continue to be able to worship the mother without being killed for it. So in the Old Testament, there's some verses about stoning women and killing them. Thou shalt not, a man or woman who is a medium or spiritist among you must be put to death. So who do you think most of the spiritists or mediums were? Possibly not the men. You are to stone them. Their blood will be on their own heads. Like it's their own fault. Their own fault for being psychic. It's their own fault for wanting to help people with psychic prophecy. And the one on the bottom here, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. And then for rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Woo. So to rebel against the order is equated to being practicing witchcraft. And so you're going to get destroyed if you rebel against the status quo. And then as the Jewish people were, or Hebrews at this stage, were shifting from polytheistic religions and moving to monotheistic religions, just worshipping Yahweh and Yahweh alone, they began to destroy all the goddess temples wherever they were in the ancient Near East. So then the king instructed Hilkiah, the high priest, and the leading priests and the temple gatekeepers to remove from the Lord's temple all the utensils that were used to worship Baal, Asherah, and all the forces of heaven. The king had all these things burned. He also tore down the houses of the shrine prostitutes, that would be the sex priestesses, that were inside the temple of the Lord. So you know for sure that when the boys came in, they took over the goddess temples. And it's saying here, remove them from the Lord's temple. Well, it was the goddess's temple until the guys came along to do that. Okay, so this is a video, and it's by Nina Paley. It's called You've Got to Believe. That's Moses on the ground there. Good, eh?
Very nice.
So basically, the guys were jealous that women had the power to bring forth life into the world. That was the ultimate power, and they wanted that power really badly. And when they couldn't get that power for themselves, they made it up that they had that power anyway. So we have the male god giving birth to a male son. Impossible biologically, but guess what? If you hear something over many times, you hear it enough, you start to believe it, even though it's impossible and could never be true. So when Genesis was written, the priestesses were still around at that time. So the two versions of Genesis were about 1000 BCE and then 600 BCE. And the priestesses knew the story of the male god creating the male son, and they would say to themselves, well, that's impossible. No one's ever going to believe that. But we do. And guess what? It's written. That's so important in the Jewish religion. It's written. So if it's written, that gives it weight, that gives it truth. It's written in the Bible, in the Old Testament, or the Jewish Testament, that this is how it was. But before Eve came along, there was a wonderful being called Lilith, who was Adam's first wife. Now, Lilith doesn't appear in the Bible. She's been written out of the Bible, but she does appear in some ancient Sumerian myths and Babylonian myths that were circulating in that part of the world at the time. And Lilith was a vexation to Adam. He wanted to have sex on top, and she refused. She wanted to have sex on top. She didn't want to be surrendered or submitted. She didn't want to submit herself to Adam sexually. She felt like she had a voice, she had a right to have sex the way she wanted to have sex. So it's said that she was banished from the Garden of Paradise. And maybe she was banished, maybe she fled. But then she fled to the Dead Sea, where God and Adam started spreading rumors that she was having sex with the devil at the Red Sea and producing 100 demon babies per day. God and Adam really didn't like it that this woman had the audacity to say no to sex in the way that Adam wanted to have sex. So you can see a beautiful painting here with the snake wrapped around Lilith. So Lilith was probably a sex priestess, guess what? And had a familiarity and a comfort with snakes. And you can see the snake is also obviously very erotic in this image as well. The picture in the middle, I'm pretty sure it's Notre Dame, but it's the old Notre Dame before it burned. There was, the woman in the middle who's got a snake tail, that's the face of Lilith. So Lilith then became the wicked temptress. Lilith became the snake, tempting Eve to eat the apple. And the daughters of Lilith, remember they were demon babies, so the daughters of Lilith were the men, not just in this time, but throughout into the Middle Ages, were very scared of the Lilim, the daughters of Lilith, because the Lilim would fly around at night. That's why they were called night hags. And they would cause the men to have nocturnal emissions. Now, isn't that disgusting?
God forbid.
How cruel. And so the men were so terrified of being visited by the Lilim during the night, and they would spend a ton of money on charms and potions to protect themselves and protect their home from the Lilim entering. Yeah, so they couldn't really accept that they had a natural sexual function at night in their dreams, and they had to blame it on a woman. Okay, here we go. So you love this picture of Eve. I absolutely love it. It's by Gustav Klimt. And I've seen it in the Belvedere in Vienna, and I just kept staring and staring at it. It's such a beautiful picture. You can see her whole body's full of light, right? And Adam's like almost like a side effect in the background. So nice. So the Gnostic texts have a really different version of Genesis. Adam was created by the power of Eve's word, not God's. Remember that the female gave the power of life to her child. Eve said, Adam, live, rise up on the earth. And remember also Isis had brought Osiris alive again when she wanted to have sex with him. As soon as Eve spoke the word, her word became reality. Adam rose up and opened his eyes. When he saw her, he said, "You will be called the mother of the living, because you are the one who gave me life." That seems like a much more plausible story to me. But in Genesis 3:20, for some reason, and I don't know why, the sensors weren't working that day. So Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living. She was the mother of all living. That's the name of the great goddess, the mother of all living. So somehow that Sumerian, the old text somehow got into the Bible, and the Jewish scribes didn't catch it. So now we have Eve being blamed for bringing death to the human race because of her wickedness as a sexual temptress, because of her sin. So God's telling them, you can eat of any tree, but not the one of knowledge and evil. And if you eat of it, you shall die. So I love that picture. It's quite an unusual picture because it looks like Eve's really having a battle to talk Adam into sex. And Adam's saying, "Not tonight, Eve, I've got a headache." He's looking, Adam's trying to look all like pure and self-righteous and like, "No, I'm not interested in sex at all, you gorgeous creature." And as I mentioned before, I'm pretty sure Eve was a sex priestess, familiar with snakes, no qualms about being sexual. There we go. So I just thought I'd throw in a few little fun cartoons here. There's some salesman here with a good deal on an apple. Are we interested? Cuter. Here we go. We'll just do that one now. Eve, that's not a salad, that's my dirty laundry.
Oh, man.
I'm trying to go back, right? Oh, there we go. Always read the small print, that's right. Eve, stop. Have you read the user agreement? No one reads that stuff. Yeah. Done that one. Anyone can make a mistake. It was a mistake. It's not like the whole world has to know. So naive, it's so cute. So, how do we get the notion of original sin? That's the next slide. There we go. Original sin is the legacy of St. Augustine of Hippo. Has anyone heard of St. Augustine? Okay. So he was a 5th century theologian. He was born towards the end of the 4th century in Hippo in North Africa. So that was the time when it was the Roman Empire was in place, and his mom was a Catholic and his dad was a pagan. So you probably know in the Roman Empire, you could be any religion you wanted to be, except you had to worship the 3 state gods. And that was part of your civic duty as a member of the Roman Empire. So his mom really wanted him to convert to Catholicism. His dad was not bothered. His dad was a pagan, it didn't matter. And Augustine had a mistress. He lived with her, I think, 14 years. They had a son together. And in his spiritual studies, he was very concerned about the fact that he couldn't control his penis. When he wanted his penis to be hard, it was soft. When he wanted it to be soft, it was hard. And he figured he can control his arm, like he can put his arm up and he can put his arm down. He can control every other part of his body except his penis. His penis must be of the devil because he could not control it. Obvious conclusion to come to. Augustine was the one who developed the idea of original sin, and it wasn't so much the sex that was the sin, it was the fact that human beings can be tempted. We have this nature where we desire certain things, or we crave certain things, we obsess about certain things, and one of the things that we crave the most is sexual connection. It's part of our wiring, it's part of our biological wiring, of course we do. And he said it's that craving, that capacity to be tempted that's so sinful because it leads you away from God into things that you shouldn't be doing. So he decided that people should only have sex if they absolutely can't help themselves, and they should get married first. And once they've had sex and had been able to procreate, then they should stop having sex as a married couple. They should just live together as brother and sister. That was his best idea for how to get close to God. I mean, ultimately, he wanted oneness with God, but he thought leaving aside sex and any kind of desire would be the way to get there. So he did a number on our sexuality, that whole idea that sex is sinful. And then, so babies that were born to Christian couples had to be baptized right away. And sometimes that was difficult because there was a high infant mortality rate before we had advanced medical knowledge. So the newborn baby had to be baptized, because if it wasn't, it would go direct to hell. And the reason it would go direct to hell was because it was born of a sexual connection between a male and a female. So the baby's whole body was full of sin just because it was born of a sexual relationship. And the only way to get rid of the sin would be to baptize the kid. But then it got difficult when children grew to the age of 12, 13, 14. What happens at that age? Your hormones start kicking in. And so that sexual energy starts to get really developed. And okay, you've been baptized. You didn't go to hell between age 2 days and 14 years old. But now what happens at age 14 when you're feeling sexual? So the answer to that is to pray to Jesus for redemption. And that's what that means when we hear about, this is my understanding of what that means. I'm sure Christians would have a very different awareness of what this means, but that we pray to Jesus to relieve us of the sin of wanting to be tempted into sex. And so when we hear about Jesus coming to save us from sin, that's the sin that is really being referred to. Nothing to do with stealing or lying or cheating, it's that one, the desire to have sex. And how can we pray to Jesus for redemption from that biological urge to have sex? We can't. It's part of our being. There's no way that anyone can take that away, not even Jesus. And so that's so, and then you probably read in the Bible something like, be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. So in the Christian understanding, the way I see it, you have to be perfect. You have to be without sin if you want to go to heaven. If you're sexual, probably you're going to go to hell, especially if you have sex outside of marriage, especially if you have sex with another person's wife or husband. That's the bad stuff. So within marriage, it's kind of acceptable, but as far as Augustine is concerned, even sex within marriage is really on the edge, as if you're not doing it for procreation. So can you see how this myth still governs strict Catholic couples?
Well, and a lot of culture, our culture even now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of freedom, especially in a place like this.
Yeah.
But it's still all over, and I'm ready to see it open up in a beautiful new morality. The new age is coming. That's what I'm contributing to.
Beautiful, thank you. Here we go. There we go. So these are the consequences of God when Adam and Eve, they ate of the fruit. They realized they were naked, and then God has to punish them. So just take a look at these punishments. I'll make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor, you will give birth to children. Childbirth is painful. It's just painful. A big baby has to come through a small opening. This is meant to be like it's a punishment from God. This is our natural biology. And I'm sure some women who are spiritually evolved and who are really one with their body, maybe they don't give birth in pain, but for most women it's painful. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. So this is a horrible punishment, because the woman's being told that she'll desire her husband. In other words, don't desire another man. You'll desire your husband whether he's ugly or not, and he's going to rule over you. And to Adam, because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it, cursed is the ground because of you. So can you hear there that men should not listen to their wives? That if they listen to their wives, they're going to be led astray. And I read some work by the author Gottman, and he does a lot of work on helping couples heal in their relationships. And he said the men who listen to their wives usually have much more loving, egalitarian, and committed, intimate relationships than the ones who refuse to listen to their wives. Interesting. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Well, the physical body, this one, from dust you were taken, and to dust you will return. The physical body is physical. It's going to decompose. It's going to disappear. It will go back into the ground, which is why we're buried in the earth. The spirit lives on as far as I'm concerned. So that's not really a punishment. That's just like the natural thing that's going to happen when we physically leave our bodies. And working the fields to bring forth food is hard work. I mean, it's not really a punishment. It's just, that's what's so. If you're going to eat from the land, you've got to work hard. You've got to take care of the cattle, take care of the crops. You've got to be out there every day. There's no day of rest for a farmer. They have to be out there every day. So this is all meant to sound like a big punishment, but really it's just the way things are. And I lived in Vienna for a couple of years, and I took my friend on a tour in the evening, and I saw this for the first time. So this is a big financial institution in Vienna. The picture on the left, you can see Eve, and she's attracting the snake. So the snake's heads are moving towards Eve, and on the right-hand side, it's Adam on this, like it's a security gate. And the snake, you can see the snake's tails by Adam, so the heads are moving away from Adam. It's just the symbolism is still alive and well today in our buildings. And this was taken probably 2014. And I don't think they have any plan to change their security gate design. This would be my wish for Eve. I love that. Isn't that great? The alternative. Yeah. So part of the problem with having this sex be seen as sinful, it's only acceptable in a marriage between a male and a female. So if you're a heterosexual, you're okay to have sex in marriage. If you're homosexual, oh no. If a man has sexual relationships with a man, as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. Which explains why Matthew Shepard was slaughtered as a young gay man, because of that Bible heresy that says that being homosexual and having homosexual sex is detestable, and they have to be put to death, like as if we have the right to stone anybody just because of what they do with their genitals. One of my friends in ministerial school had a really thriving business marrying gay men and gay women, and she was interviewed by the local journalist, and he said, how do you reconcile yourself to that, performing a marriage ceremony for people who are gay? And she said, I'm marrying their souls, I'm not marrying their genitals. Great answer, Reverend Rosalind.
But why even have to defend that? Let them marry their genitals if they want. That's ridiculous. We're still coming at this from, I mean, even in this, I was just looking at the framing of all of this, and not just in your presentation, but in how we view this looking back in history, because everything that's been written has been written from that patriarchal understanding, because that's what was in place to record it. And so even the temples and the prostitutes and things, you haven't said anything about it, but there were men in those roles too, and serving women, not just men going to be service because they were the number one things back before, because everybody was going there. So yeah, I really appreciate sorry.
That's okay. No, thank you for your comments.
You know.
Let's move on. Oh, and masturbation as well. So there's not a big rap for self-pleasuring in the Bible. And this man, Onan, Judah said to Onan, sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the child would not be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Yeah, that's why we have some myths about the danger of masturbating.
It's like funny, the guys get a consequence.
Yeah. So even in German, The word to masturbate is onanieren. It comes directly from the Bible. Interesting, huh? Yeah. All right. So I've got a little... I love this. The joy of self-pleasuring is touching your self-worth and eternity in hell. Yes. Yes, it is. I love that. And I've got another funny one for you coming up. Masturbation. Can you live with the consequences?
Yes, I love that. That's great.
It was funny. Okay, so do we need a break? How are we doing? Keep going? Yep, all right. So the Immaculate Conception, was it immaculate? Well, for those of you who came when I was doing the presentation on the UFOs, found this gorgeous picture of this spaceship. Can you see it in the sky there? With a golden cord directly to Mary. Possibly she was impregnated by an alien visitor, possibly. It's called, yeah, The Annunciation. It's a beautiful story. I don't believe she was a virgin. I heard one of my spiritual teachers many years ago, he said that the birth of Jesus was planned by the people in the temple, and Mary had sex with a very wise, developed priest. And Joseph knew about it and knew that he was not going to be the biological father, but he was being told that he would have to act as the father in order to protect Mary. But she was impregnated by a very evolved being. So there was actual sex that took place here. Or it could have been an alien. Who knows? And another little funny. Abstinence is 99.999% effective as a contraceptive measure. In Mary's case, abstinence was not the thing that stopped her from getting pregnant. Mary, so I've got some more jokes. Mary has to think fast to escape punishment for her extramarital sexual activity. Oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. What will I tell Joseph? You know, she's got a pregnancy testing kit there in her right hand. I know, I'll tell him God did it. He believes all that stuff. Mary cleverly avoids getting stoned to death. It was a miracle. You were with another man, Mary, and the penalty for that is stoning. Oh, no, it wasn't a man, it was an angel. Oh, well, in that case, no problem. And I want to read you a story from my book. Can you help me? Thank you. Ooh. The one with the stickies, thank you. So I spent some time in the Middle East, and I was staying with a wonderful Palestinian man who was really a spiritual leader for the Palestinians, and he really wanted to have sex with me. We had a wonderful connection, and he thought we should consummate. He was married with a number of kids, a number of grandchildren, but he really thought that we should do that. And then I met his son, and his son was really attracted to me as well. It was like a family thing going on here. And I had no interest in having sex with his son at all, but there was definitely a bit of a vibe between us, where I didn't have a vibe at all with the dad. So we went to a cafe on the Mount of Olives, which is like a cafe where you have all three religions represented. Very, very unusual space. And he was lying down, so I'll just read the story from here. So his name was Abdullah. I called him Abdullah in the book. And I had two friends who were in the house with me. One was called Rick, a Jewish guy, and one was called Noor, and he was a Muslim. So the next day, Abdullah, Rick, Noor, and I went to an informal gathering of Christians, Jews, and Arabs at the All Nations Cafe on the Mount of Olives. Abdullah lay down on a rug and some cushions that had been scattered around the patio area in front of the entrance to the cafe. I was inside helping with the setup for the event, and a 30-something Palestinian man approached me. His jeans were grubby and he was unshaven. Obviously, he was flirting, but there was something about him that was creepy, and I made an excuse to leave the conversation. I went to check on Abdullah, but as I approached him, he picked up a handful of gravel from the ground next to his rug and started throwing the stones at me, one or two at a time. Ouch! At first I laughed. I thought he was kidding around, but he didn't stop, and the stones that hit my bare legs really stung. Stop it, that hurts, I said. He kept going. Then he shouted at me. That Palestinian guy you were talking to is no good. I don't want you doing with him what you want to do with my son. So that was it. Abdullah was going to stone me to death for being a wicked temptress. I'm not going to do anything with him. He's creepy. Why would you even think that? Abdullah was embarrassed and stopped throwing stones. How could he not think that? He was a patriarch in the Middle East. For 5,000 years, women had been persecuted for being women and executed for their uncontrollable sexuality. He was just doing what any self-respecting man would do and crushing the threat before the patriarchy fell apart and came tumbling down around his little head. Okay, next one. Joseph is questioning God's power. So they were betrothed shortly afterwards. Joseph learned something that puzzled him greatly. If God could create Adam, why didn't he just create his own son instead of knocking up my frickin' wife? And Joseph's virginity was not given due recognition. I just don't get it, Mary. All I hear is Virgin Mary this and Virgin Mary that, and it's not fair. I'm a virgin too, for crying out loud.
We still haven't even had sex.
Yeah.
Right.
According to some stories.
Yeah. And the boy child was predicted to save mankind, but oh no, it's a girl. Like you can see the three wise men, they're just horrified that a girl baby's been born instead of a boy baby. God ruined Mary and Joseph's sex life. It doesn't mean anything, honey. Oh God, is something all women shout in bed. Joseph was not convinced. Poor Joseph. God was a hard act to follow. I love the look on her face. Was that it? Three wise men can be hard to find. A virgin birth I can believe, but finding three wise men? So Mary became the perpetual virgin, meaning that in the 2nd century of the Common Era, she was a virgin before Jesus' birth. So that was the common story, that she was a virgin when she conceived. By the 4th century of the Common Era, Mary was also a virgin during and after Jesus' birth. So, as you mentioned earlier, that he had brothers and sisters, and they're mentioned in the Bible. We don't know their names. But that was really embarrassing for the church fathers to take it on that Mary possibly had sex. She became a sexual being after after Jesus was conceived. And we don't know if the others, we don't know if the other children were born before Jesus, which would be really horrifying, wouldn't it? Because it would mean that she was not a virgin when Jesus was conceived. And by the 7th century of the Common Era, Mary had become the perpetual virgin. Like at no time in the history or in the future of eternity was she ever going to be sexual. And why was this? Because if Jesus was born from a woman who at any point in time, whether on earth or in heaven, could be sexual, it would mean he would be tainted by sin. And if Jesus is tainted by sin, he's just like all of us, he's human. And how can he redeem us from sin, the sin of sex, if he's also tainted by the sin of sex? That's why she had to be a perpetual virgin. And you can see on the right, it's not so clear, but on the bottom picture, you can see the snake's tail, and on the right-hand top picture, there's the snake's head. And Mary's got her foot on the snake. So Mary had to atone for Eve. Eve listened to the snake, and she committed a sinful act. And so Mary, instead of being a wicked, simple, sensual, sexual, priestess, attractive, alive, energetic being, Mary has to become this virgin. She has to become a virgin, an innocent, in order to atone for Eve's sin, earlier sin. So she's got her foot on the snake, and she's showing that purity will be in charge and it will dominate over the sinful nature of sexuality. And one of you noticed it before, as Christianity took over in the Roman Empire, so Isis and Horus were transmuted into Mary and Jesus. And what's so interesting to me about this image is that you can see it's clearly an African on the left-hand side, an Egyptian, maybe a Nubian, and then the skin gets a bit lighter, and then as the imagery progresses, suddenly Mary's white. I mean, she's Northern European.
He's from Ireland.
Yeah, she's probably Irish. Yeah. And Jesus is also interesting because you can see in the last picture, Jesus is looking directly at the artist. He's got his hand up in his traditional pose. He's not looking at Mary, and he's not engaged with Mary at all. He's already a man who's in charge. Mary is now a side effect. The fact that she gave birth to him is kind of irrelevant. Next one, we have Mary Magdalene. Was she a penitent whore or a sex priestess of Isis? So here on the left, you see the penitent whore imagery in the classical paintings. I really love the position of her head on that bottom picture. So interesting. She's begging for begging for forgiveness from Jesus for being the penitent, for being the whore. So something that people don't understand also about the Middle East is that, or the ancient Near East, is that women were totally dependent on men. So if a woman's husband died, if she didn't have a father to go to, if she didn't have brothers, if she didn't have a brother-in-law, if she was alone in the world with no male relatives to depend on, what was she going to do? How was she going to eat? Well, she could sell her body. So men tended to think that the women who sold their body for money were licentious, lascivious, they projected male sexuality onto the women and assumed that the women were selling their bodies because they wanted sex. No, they wanted to eat, they wanted to survive. I believe Mary Magdalene was a sex priestess. I believe she was trained in the order of Isis. So you can see the image of Isis on the final image at the end of the screen. And the picture, the brown picture, is a picture of the Isis knot. You can see the knot that she's wearing in her clothing between her breasts. And then you can see the picture of Mary Magdalene next to her, wearing the blue dress and carrying the jar of oil, sacred oil. She's also got the same knot. So that's why some scholars believe that Mary was a priestess in the order of Isis, a sex priestess. I believe she was. Anyone believe she was a sex priestess rather than? No, we don't know.
I think what we know for certain isn't the story that was in the Bible.
Definitely, yeah.
And that's not what happened in reality.
Yeah, not what happened at all. So Mary was set up to be a hooker. She wasn't a hooker at all. That Pope Gregory was trying to, this is in 591, he was trying to attract followers for the Christian religion. And he said, if Jesus can forgive a wicked whore, he can forgive you too. And, come and just, pay your alms and pay for your, what's that word? When you get, you pay something and you get someone to pray for you, and you're going to buy your place in heaven. Indulgences, that's it. Thank you. Indulgences, yeah. Just come, bring your money, and Jesus will forgive you. So, and then it wasn't till I think 1969 that the Pope said, okay, she wasn't a whore. That was made up. But in the minds of people everywhere, she's a whore, right? So someone saying that, oh yeah, she wasn't, we made a mistake, doesn't really help her. And there's a story in the Bible about Jesus. Oh, you have a question?
Did you ever read a book called I Remember Union?
No.
It's a channeled book, and it's the story of Jesus.
Yeah.
And Mary is his wife. Mary Magdalene and his wife. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
Very different than anything you'll read anywhere else.
Yeah.
He lived to be like in his 80s.
Mm.
She buried him.
Mm.
Yeah, beautiful
Wonderful.
book. I Remember Union.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I read a book by Tom Kenyon, also a channeled work from Mary Magdalene, and heard that when Jesus cast out the 7 devils from Mary Magdalene, it wasn't because she was a sinner, it's because they were equals. He was a priest, she was a priestess. They both understood spiritual work. They both knew how to work with energy. He cleansed her 7 chakras, And what's not written in the Bible is that she turned around and cleansed his 7 chakras. So they knew how to balance each other's energy. But mentioning that he was married, was he married to Mary Magdalene? So he's walking across the water. She says, "Get milk while you're out." Cute. And then he plays a trick on Mary. "Why did you have to die, Jesus? I'm right here." Laugh out loud. And the boys' club takes over after the resurrection. "So, ladies, thanks for being the first to witness and report the resurrection, and we'll take it from here." So Christianity spread all over Europe, part of the Middle East as well. And at first the Christians, so after Jesus died, there was a very small Christian sect. And they were persecuted by the Romans, as I'm sure you know. And then Emperor Constantine made it so that the religion would at least be accepted, that it wouldn't be like an outlaw religion, that the Christians could be persecuted, because they were crucified for practicing their religion. They wouldn't worship the state gods. They said there's only one God, that's God in heaven, that's the one I'm going to worship. So they were put to death for not worshiping the state gods in the Roman Empire. So after Constantine died, the next emperor, Theodosius, he set it up that the Christian religion was be the dominant and official religion of the empire. So that's a massive change from being a small persecuted sect to now having Christianity be the dominant religion of the whole Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire was full of various pagan groups, and so Theodosius had a big job on his hand to convince these pagan groups that they needed to worship Jesus. And they had been much happier worshipping Isis, or the goddess. So he sent emissaries all over the empire to convince people that, so Mary is now the name of the mother, but it's really Isis in another form. So they managed to convince the people that whatever they had been believing before, the Christian religion was that, just with different names. Apparently they were successful. And then the Christians, even though they had been persecuted, and even though one of the tenets of Christianity is, love thine enemy, they went around destroying all the pagan shrines and all of the pagan temples. So, I'm just going to go here. There we go. So this is Artemis, the many-breasted goddess. And has anyone been to Turkey or to Ephesus? Yeah. If you went to Ephesus, I'm sure you went to this ruined temple of Artemis. So the Christians destroyed the temple, and on the right you can see what the temple would have looked like when it was in its heyday. It's one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So the Christians just razed it to the ground, just a few stones left. And it's really huge, it's amazing. I in my mind, didn't think how big it would be. So that's what they did. They just destroyed all the sacred places that had been dedicated to the goddess and put their own priests and leaders in there. And then in Egypt, this is the Temple of Philae in Egypt. So you can see the Christian crosses that were carved into the walls where normally there would be hieroglyphs. And what I love about Egypt is the pharaohs often have erections. So this one, on this left side, you can see the pharaoh with a very healthy erection. And then, maybe not so clear, but the Christians started to chip away at the erection to try and get rid of it. So you can see on the right-hand side that they'd started scratching away, but not completely destroyed it. And on the left here, they've made some kind of indentation to try and mask the fact that it's really an erection. And nothing's proven. There were no records at that point in time when the pharaohs were in charge in Egypt, but I have read that the pharaoh would masturbate into the Nile to make it a fertile place during the time of the Nile flooding, because the Nile flooding was the way that the Egyptians, basically that's how they lived. The Nile had to flood successfully for them to grow their crops. So the pharaoh believed that his divine semen would make the Nile more fertile for the Egyptian people. And also the pagans, they would masturbate on the ground to make the men would masturbate on the ground to make the ground fertile as well. It's like blessing the ground with semen fluid. Yeah. And also I'm going to move on here. So now we're left with the virgin whore dichotomy. And that's translated itself to the good witch and the bad witch, which we have in the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, so women are either virgins or whores, nothing in between, or not even both and. You can't be both and. You're one or the other. So I'm sure it doesn't apply to any men here, but a man wants a virgin to have children with, but he wants a whore to have sex with. So I'm not going to ask you men to comment on that, but you can tell me later.
It's changing. I mean, yeah, I think, that's a bit general, but yeah.
It is general. It's very stereotypical. Forgive me. I'm painting broad brushstrokes here. And the crones, the postmenopausal women, or the Wiccans. Wiccan comes from the word wise, by the way. It doesn't mean dark or black magic. Doesn't mean that. It just means wise. The wise ones. They're the biggest threat to the patriarchy. And why is that? Because they don't need a man anymore. And they're past their childbearing age, so they're not useful. They're not fertile.
And their nose is a penis.
Yep.
Not a very erect one.
And can you see how the symbolism has been carried over into our fairy tales? Yeah, the poisoned apple that will cause death. Yeah. The wicked old witch who the patriarchy is so scared of, will bring the poison apple to the innocent young Snow White. But she's rescued by a handsome prince, so it's okay. And women were accused of consorting with the devil. And why was that? Because if the crops failed, if the animals got sick, if there was a high infant mortality rate, somebody had to be blamed, and it was a good idea to blame women, apparently. And that led to the Spanish Inquisition came first, but that was when the Catholics started to murder the Jews in great numbers. But when they'd gotten rid of most of the Jews, or the Jews had fled, what were they going to do? This was a very lucrative activity to burn people. You had a lot of people, earned a living that way. So they could burn witches instead, because the Jews were the problem, they thought, and then the next problem would be women if they had the problems with agriculture, with infant mortality, crops failing. Oh, I didn't. Joan of Arc was also burned as a witch. Sorry, I forgot the image for that. So we had witch trials in England, Europe, and America. So they started really early in England, 1400. So there's some, and in America it was Salem, so well known, but the witch trials in Salem were minimal compared to the thousands of witches that were burned all over Europe for many hundreds of years, not just a few years in the 18th century.
Is this patriarchy that's in control here that seems so evil to all of us?
Yeah.
Was making men afraid of themselves too, because they were afraid to speak up, to see their daughters and their grandchildren and their wives being hung because of the fear.
Yeah.
And it's been internalized now through ages and centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we're breaking out of and needing, and it's deep.
Yeah, it is. It's really deep.
Patriarch doesn't serve either sex.
Yeah, nobody wins.
No.
Nobody wins, absolutely.
I mean, and all of this and all of these stories are still even a piece of what's happening in the Middle East right now, with these patriarchal religions doing their thing, playing with our emotions and our fragility and our traumas from all of these things for centuries and millennia. Mm-hmm. And just something new needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're birthing it, hopefully.
We are birthing it.
We're birthing it. Here and now, here and now. Mm-hmm. This is all about becoming conscious, becoming awake, and that's part of the healing journey for sure. Yeah. And so here we have women as wicked temptresses. Did you ever see the movie Dangerous Beauty? About Veronica Franco? She was a very well-respected, the most famous courtesan in Vienna. And when the Black Death came to, Venice. When the Black Death came to Venice, she was accused of being the witch who had caused the Black Death. And if you've ever been to Germany and done a Rhine River cruise, that's a very famous site, the Lorelei. So the Lorelei was like a mermaid who would attract the sailors to. She would sing, and the sailors on the Rhine would be so attracted to her that their ships would just get destroyed on the rocks. And then we have Cleopatra, who seduced Antony, Mark Antony, and then we have Megan, the wicked Megan.
I know.
What has she done?
What has she done? Oh, she seduced Prince Harry away from the royal family, the British royal family. Oh, okay. Well, good for you. Yeah. So, yeah, if it wasn't for Meghan, Harry would probably still be part of the firm. Yep. And when I worked in Europe, I found this beautiful fishtail goddess on a font in an old monastery in Austria. Can you see what a sexual imagery that is? So she's holding up two fishtails, but her vagina have always completely wide open. And then the next one is a church in Slovenia, which is clearly a statue of a fishtail goddess, but guess what's happened to her vagina? It's been covered up with foliage, because it's not very Christian, is it? And now look at the Starbucks symbol. So when Starbucks was developing its logo, they told the people who were going to be designing the logo that they wanted an image to be, the logo for Starbucks to be representative of something that was impossible to resist. Something you would crave even if it would lead you to your death. So the bright spark who was in that design team came up with the fishtail goddess image, and you can see the original version of Starbucks. There she is in all her glory with her vulva wide open. And then the next development of the logo, her breasts are covered up with her hair. She's still got her legs wide open, but no more breasts. And then the last one, no breasts, no legs. The legs have been cut off here at just about the pelvic area. So, yeah, she's a nice, pure, virginal, chaste, double fish-tailed ex-goddess.
Or hand puppets.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, because women have been seen as sinful, the wicked temptresses, they tempted man into sin, they caused the fall of man. So now it's fine and good to rape women, to hurt women, to punish women, to take control and decide whether women get to live or die. And it's glorified in our art and our media. And women are trafficked as sex slaves. They are vulnerable, and this is what the patriarchy has led us to. And it all stems back, as far as I'm concerned, in that story with Adam and Eve that was twisted. Genital mutilation is still a thing in the Middle East. I lived with some Egyptians in rural Egypt, and they told me that when the bride was taken to the bedchamber by the groom, the father would be outside with all the brothers, the father of the bride, outside with all the brothers, and the bride would have to prove she was a virgin by bleeding when she was penetrated for the first time, so they would go in with a white handkerchief. If there was blood on the white handkerchief, they could show that to the father, and the father would shoot in the air, and that would let the whole village know that it's fine. My daughter is a virgin. You can relax. All is good. She has not brought shame on the household. But if there was no blood on the handkerchief, that meant that she must not be a virgin anymore. So she's now brought shame on the whole household, and the gun was then used to kill her, because that's an obvious way to deal with shame. So we have this gender-based violence, and these are some of the aspects of gender-based violence. This is what goes on in the world. Goes on in America. It's not something that's related necessarily to the Middle East or third world countries. And here are some women who are breaking taboos and making her story. So proud of these women. I love them all for just standing up and using their voice. And then we had Mahsa Amini, who died. Remember that it was covered in the news. She refused to wear her hijab, and she was out there demonstrating, and she was brutally beaten up by it's called the morality police, and she died in hospital. She's only 22 for refusing to wear her head covering. So the elders of the Parliament of the World's Religions have advised that the justification of discrimination against women and girls on the grounds of religion or tradition, as if it were prescribed by a higher authority, is unacceptable. That's massive progress to come from the Parliament of World Religions. It doesn't mean that it's understood around the world, but I'm very thrilled that that statement has been made.
There are more and more people who are believing that if we could, and it can't be done, but the feeling is if we could just be rid of all the patriarchal religions, or they would diminish greatly, then we would be in a better shape to follow what we just read.
Yep. And the solution, or one solution, and my particular solution, because I'm a Science of Mind minister, is to change your thinking. So we can't change what's out there, we can't change what's happened in the past, we can change our mind, we can change our consciousness. That's where we have power. So let's do these affirmations. I'd like to ask you to stand, please, and repeat after me. My sexuality is a blessing to the world. Go.
My sexuality is a blessing to the world.
I was born of divine sexual energy.
I was born of divine sexual energy.
And that is good. Yeah. I make love, not war.
I make love, not war.
My body is the body of God and wholly sexual.
My body is the body of God and wholly sexual.
Self-pleasuring is pleasing to God as me.
Self-pleasuring is pleasing to God as me.
My hands are just the right length.
My hands are just the right length.
I guess we could call it God pleasuring then also.
It is. You can have a seat. Thank you. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you.
So the last word, go forth and multiply.
All right.
Your experience of pleasure, fun, and sensuality.
Yeah.
And the downside of dying a virgin is, don't die a virgin. Terrorists are up there waiting for you.
That's great.
Oh, no.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you very much.